Back when I was a teenager, we had two options to form our personality. The first option was to listen to 80s music like ABBA or Journey and pretend that you're better than everybody else because you listen to music that nobody else listens to. The only problem with this is that 90% of the population is well aware of Don't Stop Believing and Dancing Queen. So shut the fuck up, Jessica. I'm sorry, I got a little carried away. Majority of the popular kids at my high school chose this as their dominant personality trait, and it irritated the living shit into me. The second option is to watch old movies and silently judge your peers, thinking that you're better than them because you know names like John Carpenter and John Landis. Can you guess which option I chose? One of those old movies I watched was John Landis's American Werewolf in London. Which brings me to the topic of today's video. Welcome to Rotten Damians. Today we are discussing An American Werewolf in London, The Hidden Meaning. An American Werewolf in London was released in 1981 and it is possibly the greatest werewolf movie of all time. John Landis seamlessly blends horror and comedic elements whilst making stark and necessary societal comments. The societal comments Landis makes are about survivor guilt revolving around the Jewish community in a post-World War II world, but we'll discuss more about that in a minute. Kurt C. Mack and his 1941 Wolfman inspired John Landis to create his American Werewolf in London. Kurt C. Mack was a German Jew who left Europe and fled to Hollywood to escape the Nazis. Once in Hollywood, he infused Wolfman with his life experiences. Hence, the Wolfman is made out to be a monster in his community, and he possesses a star on his hand which is similar to the yellow stars German Jews were forced to wear. The point of the movie is to showcase how Kurt was made to feel whilst in Europe. He was made out as a monster who was branded and segregated. John Landis continues this trend, except rather than discussing Jewish experiences during the war, he discusses the survivor guilt within the Jewish community. Landis was born into an American Jewish family, so this societal commentary is also personal. In the first act of the movie, Landis almost immediately and very subtly introduces the theme of Jewish segregation and survivor guilt. For example, when David and Jack enter the Slaughtered Lamb pub, the English people ignore them and almost ostracize them as if they do not belong. Jack then sees a pentagram on the wall, which he calls the Mark of the Wolfman.
The Mark of the Wolfman.
This is an obvious nod to Kurt and his 1941 Wolfman, which, as we know, also comments on Jewish experiences during the war. David and Jack are forced to leave the pub, which results in the werewolf stalking them and turning Jack into a slaughtered lamb. Whilst the wolf eats Jack, David begins running away, but he eventually stops and turns around thinking of his best friend, Jack. In my opinion, this scene introduces the theme of survivor guilt, because we can see David's thought process. Initially he reacts on instinct by running away, but once he understands the situation, he turns around thinking, what if I can do more and help my friend? He feels guilty about running away. David is bitten by the wolf and rushed to the hospital. During Act 2, Landis basically says fuck subtlety. The people watching my movie need to know the hidden subtext. For example, firstly, once David is in the hospital, a nurse tells us that he's an American Jew.
I think he's a Jew.
Secondly, the werewolf curse has begun taking effect, resulting in some gnarly nightmares. In one of the nightmares, a group of zombie Nazis begins attacking David and his family back in America, which is a not so subtle nightmare. As per the curse, David has also begun hallucinating his late friend Jack, who says that he can only move on if David kills himself. All of these experiences are associated with survivor guilt, hence the nightmares and seeing his late best friend who is telling him to kill himself. These survivor guilt symptoms are then coupled with a Jewish theme. For example, David is a Jewish American and, well, the Nazi zombies. At the end of Act 2, David leaves the hospital and moves in with his nurse and lover named Alex. She tells him,
I believe that you loved him very much and that somehow you blame yourself for his death.
Which also alludes to the survivor guilt theme. Act 3 begins with the most famous scene in this movie, David's werewolf transformation. The transformation is timeless and still holds up today because it was created with practical effects by utilizing makeup and prosthetics. The transformation is honestly the main attraction to the movie and the reason why it is still fresh in so many of our minds. The entirety of the previous 2 acts essentially builds up to this point. The guilt of surviving is at an all-time peak. David cannot eat or sleep. He's restless and continuously plagued by nightmares and visions of his friend. He does not know how to deal with these feelings of guilt and grief, so it eats at him and completely transforms him. He's no longer the person he used to be. He is now instead a monster. The transformation is a manifestation of his guilt. He is a prisoner in his own mind. He cannot control the painful transformation. He can only go along for the ride. The decline in David's mental and physical health is further enhanced by the fact that each time Jack appears on screen, he's more decomposed. It serves almost as a contrast to David's well-being. The longer these feelings eat at him, the worse it gets. After David's transformation, he embarks on a murderous rampage. I think the fact that this new monstrous David is offing people could allude to how survivor guilt not only affects the individual, but also those around him or her. We see David off a married man, forcing him to leave his wife and children alone. He has estranged their relationship, much like how many people suffering from survivor guilt can estrange their relationships. David's murderous rampage ultimately leads to him being shot and killed in an alley, surrounded by his lover, Alex. The fact that David's guilt led to his demise is a warning to the dangers of neglected mental health. If you're struggling with any internal battle, just know that you do not need to do it alone. The Jewish survivor guilt theme is the official hidden meaning behind An American Werewolf in London. However, in recent years, viewers have also found a queer subtext. Originally, I planned on expanding on the queer subtext in this section of the video. However, upon my research, I do not see a compelling argument. I understand the remarks that people are making, however, I just feel it is too much of a stretch. For that reason, I will not elaborate on the queer subtext. However, I will link a few articles below so that you can form your own opinion. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and for me to reach my goals. All in all, An American Werewolf in London is a classic movie, and if you have never seen it, be sure to check it out. The movie is by no means perfect, nor did it age too well considering the misogynistic remarks. However, it is a pivotal movie in the werewolf subgenre. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.